Coté, do you have any certifications, or have you gotten certifications in your career, like tech ones?
Have I ever told you about the first car wreck I got in that was my fault?
No, and I'm very interested to find out how this is relevant to what I just asked you.
It involves the only certification I have that I can remember, which is I think in 2004, maybe 2003. I had gotten like a very well paying tech job a year or so earlier. So I bought a Volvo S80 T6 because I grew up around Cadillacs and big cars and things like that. So. That doesn't explain the Volvo choice, but that is the largest Volvo sedan that you can buy. And it seems really nice. And so I was working at BMC Software, and we had this new person come in. Anyways, we got all crazy about agile development and Scrum. And then the next week, we were going to get our Scrum Master certification. And of course, several, before that, so it wasn't the next week, but before that, this guy was, this VP was very interested in Agile. So I went to the Barnes & Noble over by the Arboretum. You've probably been there in Austin.
Yeah.
And I ran in like a good little boy, and I got the Scrum book and probably even an Agile book. And I was so eager to get home that I went to the parking lot, and I got in my car, and I was backing up, and I ran into a lamppost in my relatively new car. And then some weeks later, I was a certified Scrum Master. And that's
You're like, if I'm going to wreck a car over this is my motivator to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that's long expired 20 years later. But,
and I was going to ask you about your experience, but instead I'm going to ask my guest about their experience, which I'm sure is very biased, actually. So Mumshad Mannambeth, thank you so much for being our guest today. In a moment, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. But first, I want to ask the question, do you think getting certifications can really make a difference in someone's career?
You're asking me?
Yeah. Your totally unbiased opinion, yes.
Completely unbiased opinion, yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, so personally, I've been kind of a certification guy myself. Like in the earlier days of my career, I actually, one of the ways that I got jobs or got better, I would say better at my job was through certifications. And I just heard Coté mention EMC. So I was at EMC too. That was, I actually started my career working, supporting EMC storage arrays. And there's this story where, so I was, there are multiple storage arrays, and I was kind of supporting one of the kind of the lower end storage arrays. And there's this, we're a big team, and I always wanted to move into the other team that was that supported the better storage areas, the higher end ones. Okay. I always had an eye for that. So I would very often go up to the team lead and ask them to kind of get me in. And they would say, but you haven't really worked on it. You don't have any experience. And so what I would do is I would go and do my certification. And then I had friends there, so I would get some books, and it was very hard to get the material at that time. Like it wasn't as open, education wasn't as open as it is today. So yeah, I would get the books, I would get myself certified, and then go show my certification, and then say, I've done my homework, and I've put in the effort. Here's the certification, and so get me in. So that's how I kind of found my jobs, and initially in the early days of my career. Do you
think certifications meant more back then than they do now? Because now there are certifications about every little thing, and badges and all this stuff. And so, do you think the quality of or the value of a certification has gone down as the quantity of possible certifications to get has gone up?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, because there are, as you said, a lot of certifications these days, and there were very few back then. We just had the Red Hat ones, and the ITILs, and really few. Yeah, true. So. But I think nowadays, I guess it's probably the more hands-on certifications that are more popular. like that really test your skills in getting things done. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's all evolving, the whole training industry. So
I think now is a great time for you to introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Mumshad Mannambeth. I started my career in the IT industry, as I said, supporting storage arrays. And then I've moved to work with a couple of other vendors like HP. And I worked with for many years, I worked at EMC. And then about 5 years ago, I kind of started teaching online, creating videos and courses on DevOps. And I decided one day that that's what I wanted to do full time, because I had my day job and then I was kind of creating courses at night. So I thought, why not do this full time? So I decided to do that. And then for the past 5 years, I've just been doing that. We built a platform called Code Cloud, where we teach everything DevOps, from Linux to Docker to containers to Kubernetes. And we built some kind of hands-on labs around our trainings, which our students really like. And so for the past 5 years, we've just been building Code Cloud to be kind of the next-gen training platform.
I think you're underselling yourself. Like, how many students have you taught Kubernetes to? Millions?
So I think if you go to Udemy and look, I think it should be more than 1 million. I mean, the total students. But yeah, I've been very fortunate to, I guess, have the opportunity to get my courses to a lot of people through for the past few years. So yeah.
My personal experience is that I went to a full stack web development boot camp, and then I was able to get a job in tech with my boot camp certification. But that job in tech was at IBM as a cloud developer. And I first heard about Kubernetes in preparation for the job interview at IBM. And then I got the job, and then I had this job as a cloud developer and had no idea what was going on at all. And so I took a Kubernetes course, and it was your Kubernetes course. And so having you on right now is actually a very special moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? Like, going from like taking a boot camp and getting a job as a developer at IBM. I mean, that's an amazing story right there, right? I mean, you didn't need like the traditional, college degrees and everything. And I think the last time we spoke, you also mentioned like you come from a completely different background, and now you teach. I mean, you teach this stuff, so which is really amazing.
Thank you. So here's my question. You were in tech like 11 years before you got the bug to make courses. Like for me, I understand getting the bug to make a course, but for me, it's like learning and teaching kind of go hand in hand. But you had 11 years worth of learning before you got the bug to teach. So how did the switch flip for you?
So I always enjoyed teaching. Even before, I moved to doing that full time. So even like when I was with EMC, I used to take these juniors who would join our team to and just like kind of I would volunteer to deliver a training for them, because I realized that when I teach them, I learn a lot myself. They're just like trying to answer the basic questions, kind of push me to learn and build my basics myself. So I used to do that very often, and I really liked that at that time. And I guess eventually I started trying to build something on my own. And I really found, and I really liked kind of presentations and putting together presentations, video editing. So I guess a couple of those things kind of came together into forming a course, right? Like the love for teaching, the love for like making presentations, and video editing and other kind of hacky stuff together. I kind of felt like this is something I would really enjoy. And I was learning, I guess, for AWS certification at that time. And that's when on Udemy, there was this option called Teach with Us. So I kind of tried that, and I thought, it's just super easy. Create a course, put it there, and people are going to watch it. So I thought, why not give it a shot? So that was really the moment that I started moving into this teaching career.
I enjoy the point you made about all the funny different skills and personality traits that have to come together to make someone who wants to be a tech educator a public figure. Yeah.
So like you were in Whitney were saying, there's millions of people who I guess you would count this by people using the course and certifications they get and all that kind of stuff. And so when I think I can't do the math in my head, but if you were a, let's say, school teacher, you probably teach, I don't know, up to 200 people a year. And then if you're doing workshops, like I'm sure when you were a solution architect, you used to do sometimes, you could do maybe 400 a year if you really were out there traveling all the time and visiting people. But 1 million is a lot of more people. And so when you move up to that scale, which is, I don't even know how many orders of magnitude that is, but what's different in the pedagogical feedback where you're figuring out what to teach and how to teach it and what topics, at that scale, what's that feedback loop like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one, on the first hand, because technology has enabled this for one person to create something, and for millions of people to consume it, especially through platforms like YouTube, where there are videos and tutorials that has tens of millions of views and subscribers. It is amazing, right? That we're able to do this right now compared to the previous kind of age where you could probably, as you said, teach a couple of hundred people a year. So the reach that technology gives these days, it's amazing. And of course, along with that also comes kind of a wide variety of feedback, So there's a lot of different kinds of people going through the course, and it's always different, right? And people from completely different backgrounds. There's absolutely no limitation here, right? We're not saying this is for people from this country or from this background, just everybody. So I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of good feedback. So I think we have kind of a metric internally to say we have it should be 4.5 star rating or more. But there are also kind of other feedbacks that we get. It's sometimes you can't please everyone, right? So it's always sometimes too basic for someone, too hard for the others, right? And it's some people don't have the prerequisites, others have the prerequisites. So one of the things I learned early on is just after the first couple of courses, I immediately started getting a lot of feedback. A lot of them were positive, which kept me going, but there were other negative feedbacks as well. And it kind of brings you down initially, but then I would always go back and look at it and learn a lot from those feedback. In fact, I would even reach out to those students and try and spend time with them to understand why they thought it was not good enough. And I would get so much insights from that for the future courses, I would then use those insights to create a better course. So it so happened that after the first few courses, I started proactively reaching out to students to say, hey, I'm creating this course. What would you like to see in it? And I would send out these forms Google Forms that they would fill in. And I would include the results of those forms in the future courses. So when I taught something, people know why am I even teaching that? So
right, you could show proof.
That's great to know. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's community driven.
The CKA course has some very prerequisites about networking, stuff like that. One of the things I realized while creating the CKA course is that it covers everything. You need to know the basics of networking, Linux, of course. You need to know the basics of storage. You need to know the basics of security because you're going to be working with TLS certificates and things like that. And before creating the course, I sent out a form asking students, like, where do you think you are in all of these basics? And like everybody just came back saying, I have no idea. I have no idea. So I started including some of these basics in the course. And before I taught that, I would show this proof that, hey, by the way, I had shared this survey prior to creating the course. And a lot of you said you don't have the basics of networking. So here I'm going to teach networking. But if you already know networking basics, then feel free to skip those. And so that really worked out. And that was really good input from the community. So, and now, like, we do that at a very large scale internally. Like for all our courses, there's a big team like looking at just feedbacks and trying to improve the course.
What do you think is at play with that? Because and the context for asking that is, I mean, as you two know much more than I do, because you get more interaction in these areas. Like, being very rude and hyper negative is like a problem of the internet, and like, and it sounds like, I'm sure there's still, annoyingness that you encounter at scale, but like you seem to have figured out one way to lessen it. Like what effect do you think that has? Where I think what you're describing is like, instead of you being the authority of what someone is about to show, you're sort of saying, look at all these other people, your peers, they wanted this as well. But like what I don't know, like why do you think that does something?
Because I think then I'm kind of answering the why behind certain things, right? Like, why am I teaching this? Why am I teaching this basic stuff in like a Kubernetes course? Things like that. I think explaining the why makes a lot of difference to a lot of people. Then they go like, okay, that's why you're doing this. Is fine. Do it.
Right. It's sort of anti, but it's sort of the complaint most people, including myself, have about math. Is like you learn all this weird math and you're like, I don't know why I'm suffering through this at all. Like, I'm not ever going to need to figure out, when three different people traveling at different rates from three different cities converge to like buy a hot dog.
When Baby Whitney from 5 years ago, from early 2000, took your CKA course, the first time I tried to take it, even at the very beginning, it's like, oh, you need to download the binary, unpack it, and run it as a service. And I was just like, I have no idea what any of that means at all. And also later you used pipe grep as part of like looking for a pattern and an output. And so I actually pressed paused on it, went and bought a book on Linux and figured out Linux and then came back to the course. But now I see that you have like a Linux course. Yeah. So you must have had feedback from people who had an experience like mine. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started with I think, so the first course was on Docker and then Ansible and, Kubernetes. And so we realized that a lot of people came with a lot of them came from a Windows background who had no Linux experience. So, and at that time, it was just impossible to just work with Kubernetes. Even now, right? Like if you want to deploy master components, it only works on Linux. Like you have to have Linux basics, right? So, so those feedback led us to go back and start creating courses on some of the very basics, like Linux and basics of Python and basics of networking, things like that. So yeah, we've had a lot of those. And another thing was, because a lot of students were facing challenges setting it up initially, a lot of students just wanted to come in, learn the basics of Kubernetes and go, they didn't necessarily want to have to now learn Linux and be able to set up VMs and stuff like that. I'm guessing they're probably maybe project managers or maybe managers who just wants to get just a high level idea about,
right, but not actually have to do it.
Not actually have to do it. So what we did was, that's why we built the labs, which just opens up right in the browser. So you watch a video and then you just go into a lab. So you don't necessarily have to set up this whole virtual box and virtual environments on your own. The lab is just right there. So whatever commands you learned in the previous video, you just type in those commands and we kind of validate your work and give you feedback instantly and stuff like that. So that, I think that took us to a whole new level of learning experience, where the lab would just be pre-configured to do exactly what like you wanted to learn, right? Exactly based on what the previous video was. So it just took the engagement to a whole new level.
So it seems like over the years, I haven't been a software developer for a long time, but like software developers, application developers, I don't know how it is in like embedded systems or whatever, but they've been like, I would say, very resistant to certifications. There was like enterprise Java and things here and there. And then obviously if you're a software developer, and anyways, then you do operation stuff. But like now in contrast, it seems like, just to broadly categorize it, operations people are like all about certifications. Like all about is a little strong, but it's fine. Yeah. Right. And like how, I don't know, like one, does that still hold? And two, what's up with that? Like, why are software developers not interested in certifications as much?
Yeah, that's something I had been wondering too. So like there are no popular like Python certification. I mean, there are Python certifications, but the interest isn't that much, right? Or Node.js and Ruby certifications. But yeah, I don't think that many people, because I think for the dev side, it's maybe during interview process, or it's maybe easier to kind of identify the right candidate by, I guess, looking at coding challenges or stuff like that, right? Like in the software world, you have interview processes are usually like, you kind of do a pair programming interview round where you're like doing stuff, which necessarily does not happen on the tech side, on the ops side. It's mostly based on knowledge. You're asking stuff.
It's like, why, like, I can show you I know Python because here I made this Python app. This Python app is my trophy to show you that I know Python. But there's no equivalent for like systems design. Like you can't show an example system that you made. Like the scale of what you're. That's my guess.
You can't be like, I've created this cloud.
Yeah. Exactly. And even if you can do a system on a really small scale, that doesn't translate to what you'd actually be doing in your job necessarily. Yeah. As like a Python app would to a Python application developer's job.
Do you think, I mean, just to like think of that some more, is it a matter of just to use a word that a previous guest used, of legibility? That it's knowable, that you can like understand what a developer knows, maybe not completely, but better than as you two are saying, like if you were to say I'm great at Kubernetes, that would be hard to test for beyond like some basics.
Yeah, I guess like for developers, you have GitHub repos, as Whitney said, right? Like you just need to see that. Like, I think there was a recent post from Elon Musk. I don't know if it's his post or not, but it just said, we're looking for developers and just show us your code, right? I mean, no interviews, just show us your code. They're going to look at your code and decide if you're the right person or not. So similarly, there isn't something similar in a systems environment where you're like, show us what you built, right? Like
you show us your YAML or something.
Yeah. Well, now you can.
And that brings me, I think it's interesting to think about like what motivates people to get certificates. So I think definitely knowledge or really job is really like either to up level or to break into something is a big motivator. But then I think status is a motivator too. Like you see people on LinkedIn with like 7 different certification initials next to their name. Yeah. And honestly, I think there's a point where maybe you could have too many. There would be a red flag where it's like, are you even doing your job or are you just studying for certs in the background? But so I guess one thing to relate it back to what we're just talking about, I wonder why developers don't have at least like a status thing. I guess maybe the same answer. The app is just as much status as a cert would be. And then I guess in general, Mumshad, like how much do you see status come into play for people who are taking your courses?
I think status does come into play. As you said, people like to flash the certifications on LinkedIn. Even the jackets, right? Like the the golden jacket for AWS, and the Kubernetes has now a blue jacket.
Kubestronauts, yes.
Jacket. Yeah. People like to wear it. Like if you go to KubeCon, you would see people walking around wearing the jacket, which is, I guess, that's a good sign of status, right? But as you said, so maybe this goes to like kind of the background or kind of the people. They are on the dev side. They generally seem to be way more like introverted, and they're just sitting and coding all the time. There's not really about going about.
Are you saying dev people are more introverted than ops people?
No,
I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know. It's a new fact to me. Yeah.
Just thinking that. I mean, I just can't hold that right now.
I think you're getting into the area like there's again, like you, I don't know, or I'm not certain of these things, but like there is something culturally different in the context of system administrators and developers, right? Like culturally different about developers and operations people. And I think like in back in Texas, in my neck of the woods, way back when, it was like the operations people always smoked and the developers didn't, right? And so there was this one tracer of like this very common separator. And then, maybe another area that's different is, and I'm trying to be careful on how I phrase this because I don't want it to be insulting in either way, but like the developer's job is like very open-ended. Like you sort of know what end you want to get to, but how you get there is completely unknown. Like, or if it's not completely unknown, you could do it a million different ways. Whereas, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of open-endedness, especially when you're like troubleshooting in an operations person job. But there's kind of like only a couple successful ways to configure a storage array, depending on what you need, right? Like you don't really want like, I've come up with a new way to run our infrastructure that no one has ever done before, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work, right? Like it almost seems like I don't know, but there's a few of these kind of differences where I would theorize that having a certification for an operations person is good because not only that knowability of like, well, what you want to know is that they have these skills, not that they have this like figure it out creativity. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So we actually had so we were at KubeCon Delhi like a couple of months back, and we had this gentleman who came to us and like told us about his experience getting certified. And one of the things he mentioned is, and he was working at, I think, SUSE, and what he said was like, the way he got a job is that, so he got certified and he was looking for a job, and the HR who recruited this person searched for CKA certified on LinkedIn, and his profile came up first. So then she reached out, and that's how he got in through that connection. So I think, as Whitney was saying, I think getting the job plays a big role in kind of filtering out, I guess, like when there's like hundreds of thousands of applicants that come to you, I think one of the things you do is like filter out people who have certain credentials. And that unfortunately that's the fortunately or unfortunately that's the truth with when you post out jobs on LinkedIn, right? You get like 100 or 2,000 applications. And I guess when you have that, what do HRs do to filter out? I guess they start looking for some of these badges. And I guess in that sense, it definitely helps.
Yeah. That definitely makes it self-reinforcing. But I think it's the other side of I like y'all's theory of just like it's hard to prove operations stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's no code to show, which I think that probably goes a long way for doing that.
And so with status and jackets and stuff, did you hear that there is now a golden Kubestronaut you can get? Well, first of all, let's say what a Kubestronaut is for those who don't know. It's offered by Linux Foundation, right? And it's KCNA, which is Kubernetes and Cloud Native Associate. KCSA, which is Kubernetes and Cloud Security Associate. And those two are both multiple choice exams. And then it's CKA, CKAD, and CKS, which is Kubernetes administrating Kubernetes developer and Kubernetes security. So if you get all 5 of those certifications, you can be a Kubestronaut. And then how do you become a golden Kubestronaut?
That's a big question, right? So they announced the golden Kubestronaut a couple of months back. And so not just Kubernetes, you have to know all the other tools in the ecosystem. So there's about 13 certifications.
13?
Yeah. Similar to, I guess, like the AWS one, right? Which also has, I don't know, 13, 15, 16. I think that just keeps increasing.
But that sounds expensive, honestly.
Yeah. That many certifications, yeah. But like, I guess you buy it together, you get a
also,
something like
how can you get them all before the oldest one expires? It seems like a juggling act. Like
you have 2 years, yeah. You have 2 years to get certified. I don't know the rules for the golden Kubestronaut though. I think they should allow a lot more time. But at least for Kubestronaut, each certification is valid for 2 years. So you need to do it within the 2-year period.
It seems like it would be enough that you would have gotten each one over the course, like whether they expired or not. It should be fine.
Yeah, once you're a Kubestronaut, are you a Kubestronaut forever, or only until your oldest certificate expires?
It's a good question. Yeah, I don't think anyone has thought about that yet. But I guess once you get the jacket, they're not going to take it back, right?
Like send you like a prepaid DHL envelope that you have to put it in. That'd be so sad. Well, you live in Singapore, right?
Correct.
So I've only been to Singapore once, and it was great. I did all the touristy stuff you would expect when you're there on a corporate credit card. Is fun stuff with someone who is local and could show me around. But I had a few minor questions. Now, what is up with like the little like leaving packets of like Kleenex around? Like I've heard a little bit about that, but I remember I would go eat out at malls and like there would be like little packets of tissue paper like everywhere. Is that like a thing, or did I just notice something strange that day?
Actually, it's a bit hard to get tissue papers here. So the way that things work here is, and even trash cans, right? It can be a bit hard to find, because I guess at least I feel like they're so clean that like people are so used to carrying trash with them and only dropping them on either at their home or really the designated trash area. So it's kind of hard to find. Like if you go to restaurants, you don't like easily get a tissue paper. Like it's not easily seen anywhere. Like you ask them specifically, and they would say, "Let me check," and then they would give you, because people just carry their own kind of small packets of tissue. So I guess what you must have noticed is someone who probably left it there, which I find a bit unlikely. Maybe that was something that probably happened then.
Well, I remember hearing that it's like a way to reserve a seat somewhere. That if you leave some, but that seems so odd. So
that's possible.
I don't know. I wanted to make sure
that's possible. Yeah, I mean, I think I've experienced that myself. Like, I mean, generally you would probably leave something in a place to like reserve your spot. Because we have these open kind of what we call as hawker stores, which is like an open area surrounded by like food stalls, where you just go and you can buy stuff from any of these food stalls and then just sit in this in these tables in the center. So when it's like lunchtime, these areas get crowded, and I've noticed people like leaving whatever they can to like find a spot, and I guess they usually leave like a tissue paper or whatever they have.
Right, so you can kind of just leave anything there.
Anything, yeah.
And then people, there's a norm that it's reserved. Now you kind of started to answer one of my other questions I've thought about ever since then. Is like, I don't know, maybe I'm like a sloppy eater, but especially when it comes to like things that are more saucy, like all the kind of stuff I wanted to eat there. Like it's like this in Europe too, but like I would find it really hard to find like napkins. Like I feel like I need maybe like 5 napkins per a meal. depending on it. But like, maybe it's just because I was going to like hawker places, but like there didn't seem to be an abundance of napkins around. So like, are you supposed to bring your own or like what? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess so. You're supposed to bring your own. I mean, if you go to like a McDonald's or something,
right.
You get the U.S. Experience where you have like abundance, everything in abundance. The trash, the napkins and the sauces and all of that. But if you go to like a hawker center, I mean, I think the expectation is that you need to bring your own napkins, and I've faced that myself. Like the first time I moved here. I actually moved here from the US. So I lived in the US for a few years in New Jersey. And when I moved here, I mean, there were some of these that were completely new to me.
The idea that the US experience is one of abundance is what I hadn't really thought about before. And I don't really think it's healthy for us as a culture either.
I mean,
but I do think it's true.
In terms of food, right? Like you see a big difference, like when you eat with your colleagues here and when you eat with the colleagues in the US. So here I'm like, I would probably be considered like one of the big eaters among my colleagues here because, but when I go to the US and I have my colleagues there, I feel like a child, right? Like last time we had this, when we were at KubeCon, we ordered these Chicago, the pizza, the deep dish pizza.
Oh yeah. Oh goodness.
Yeah. I could barely finish like one slice, whereas my US counterparts, they had finished the whole thing and asking for more. So
in Spain, I was struck by how much smaller the silverware is than in the U.S., which I loved because you eat slower and you savor and you don't more likely just to eat until you're full and not too much. And then I tried to find small silverware when I got home because I wanted it at my house, and I couldn't. I actually ended up buying some child silverware so that I could replicate the Spain experience at home.
I hope when you have people over now they leave and they're talking amongst themselves and they're like, "Did you the great stay I had at Whitney's? What's up with your kids' silverware though?
What's up with those baby spoons?"
I didn't want to mention anything before, but you noticed
that
too,
to have
right?
a normal sized mouth, right?
Yeah. Wait. So then my last Singapore cuisine question is so is there I mean, since you're from New Jersey, you're familiar, not from, but since you work in New Jersey, you'll be familiar with like the take home doggy bag phenomena, right? Like if you can't finish the whole Chicago pizza, you don't even have to ask. The waiters will come around and ask if you want to take it home. And does that exist in Singapore? Is there like a doggy bag culture?
It does, yeah. I mean, we always do. Because there's always some left over, and we always, I mean, they just pack it up and give it to you to take home.
So it's proactive, even more advanced, yeah.
Yep.
Huh? Yeah, because in Europe, it's almost it's almost you feel as if you're calling yourself out as some sort of barbarian. Sometimes, if you ask it, people are good. Like the more touristy places you're at, the better. But it's generally like a little weird that you would want to take something home.
I think it's weirder to waste food.
I
personally,
yeah. I don't know what's up. I think there's also a portion and silverware size thing that might be in effect.
I want to bring it back to the issue at hand. I want to talk about Code Cloud some more. So we've been talking to you about the courses you create, but now you're the head of like a small empire of a lot of content creators who make courses. So tell me about Code Cloud, please. And do you make courses directly now, or do you just oversee other people? You do make them also?
So I guess when I got to about 10, 12 courses on my own, that's when we started becoming I would say more like a company, because so when I quit my job and started doing this full time, I was like, I'm going to be a one-man team. I don't want to hire anybody. I'm just going to create my courses and just have and do whatever I want whenever I want, kind of thingy.
You're going to be free.
Yeah, free. Because before that, I had a day job. I was working 8 hours in the office, and And then I had to do this at night and through the weekends. So I thought, after I quit, I can just do this for 8 hours, right? And that's how it started. But then I guess after I had like my 10 courses out, it just got so overwhelming. Now I was working like 16 hours just on this thing. And so I just realized I can't do it alone. I have to start hiring people. And so that's when, I guess about 4 years ago, I made my first initial few hires. But then from there on, I was not able to create more courses because I was just busy updating my previous courses. And Kubernetes gets updated. The exams get updated every quarter. And so I have to go back and update the course and the underlying lab infrastructure, which there are like 150 or so lab scenarios for the Kubernetes courses. And all of them need to be updated and tested to make sure it works fine. And so that kind of started taking a lot of time. And then that's when I realized, like, if we need to teach more courses, we need to get more trainers. And so I guess for the past couple of years, our focus has been just building a team of like content creators and trainers, and then you need managers to manage them. And then so over the past 3 years, it's just been about building the company. And I guess we're about 100 people right now.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So do you make courses anymore yourself?
Yeah. So I update my existing courses. That's what I try to do the most. But I do want to create new courses too. So when there is like a new Kubernetes certification, I guess the KCSA that came out, I did that a few months back. But yeah, I definitely want to, and I try to do it, but not as much as I could. I was able to in the early days.
So what's your job title now, and what's a day in the life for you?
So my title now is founder and CEO, which is what I called myself. Like I decided to call myself a couple of years back. And my day-to-day is a lot of calls. So we started we are a very async company. So we started building a very async culture. So initially, the first couple of years, there were like 3 or 4 of us working, and we like never had a call, right? We were just like 3-4 people just on Slack, just slacking each other, and we just knew what to do, and we would just keep each other updated, and like we never had like a single call. But then as we grew to beyond 20, 30, 40, and now close to 100, although we try to be as much async as possible, and we are fully remote and we don't have any offices or anything, so fully remote, fully global company, but it's just impossible to get away from meetings. So a lot of meetings throughout the day, but then I'm a night owl, so my daughter calls me a night owl, and so I guess from maybe like 11 p.m. to maybe 2-3 a.m. or something, that's when I just get to do some work. But yeah, if it needs to extend, or if I don't have that much work, I don't extend that much. But yeah, I do the boring stuff during the day and then the fun stuff at night.
Don't we all?
So what did you learn, like, going through that process of, like, there was a moment in your story I was really interested in, which was like, you didn't say it this way exactly, and then I had to hire managers, and like, when you start off as an individual contributor or whatever, like that force of one where you create all the stuff, and then you work with other people who are like the one person creating the stuff. And then I wonder, like, what you learn about managers when it's really important to have a person who doesn't create stuff but manages other people doing it, or at least spends a lot of their time doing it. And I'm imagining you also being a technologist person, like there's a certain engineering way that you would think about their function.
Yeah, no, great question. I guess that's also been one of maybe a hard learning for me, I would say, which is really, I guess there's just no way to for us to hire like a manager who is just about managing people. I think that never really works out, I guess, at least until you are like I don't know if there's any stage in a company's journey where you can eventually hire those people. But one of the thing, I think the most successful people here are all very hands-on and are in the details. So they need to be, I mean, you need to have the people management skills, of course, but I think the higher priority would be to get in, deep dive into things and do things on their own if they can't really, if the team needs assistance. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we try to find people who who can get things done, who can be hands-on, and not just manage people.
And do you well, I like to ask questions and then answer them, so I'm going to stop myself from doing that. But like, why do you think they need that hands-on, but even more precisely, ongoing hands-on knowledge? I assume is what you're saying, not just point in time hands-on knowledge.
Yeah. So I think it just comes with the kind of work that we do, or the kind of role that we need people in, and also the stage that we're in, right? Like if you look at the way that we grew, like for example, the past 2 years, 2 years back we were like 20 people, and then we were like 40, and now we are like 100. And during this phase, sometimes like you don't have the necessary infrastructure in place. Like for example, like high-tech data systems that can like give you insights into everything that's happening in the company. Like we don't have that. We never invested in that. So when you come in as a manager and you want to know like how something's working, like what's happening in the background, sometimes you just have to be able to like export data from different sources, put it together in Excel, and be able to just combine it to understand, like, to get enough information, right? But if you expect, like, if you're coming from a big company and you expect, like, you're coming in asking, hey, where's my data system? Like, show me, I need this report. If you just say, I need this report, there's just nobody to give you that, and probably there's no team to get you that data. So yeah, I mean, those kind of things, and sometimes it's like automation. Like in our case, if you're I guess leading a team that's like building labs, and like when things are not functioning, to be able to know why things are not going as they are, and to make decisions to get the team to prioritize the right things. If you don't know, if you're not in the detail, and if you don't know what to how things function, then you don't know how to prioritize or what to prioritize. You make the wrong decisions. So in those cases, being hands-on is super important.
How many courses are there under the Code Cloud umbrella?
So at this moment, I would say it's about 120.
120.
And we have about, so I guess like the first like 15 of them are probably mine. And then the past couple of years, we have added probably 100 courses.
So I can infer, tell me if this is a correct assumption. So if there's a certification out there that exists, then you've made a Code Cloud course about it, yes? More or less?
More or less. Mostly the Linux Foundation and the CNCF certification. So that's who we have been following very closely. And that works well with the whole Kubernetes ecosystem, right? So it works very well with all of the other courses. But we also have expanded into cloud as well, like AWS, Azure, and Google. And we have like some of their important ones, not all of them, but we are just trying to prioritize like what we create on the other cloud environments.
And then do you ever make a course about something that there's no official certification for?
Yeah. So a lot of basic beginner level courses like Linux, networking, and things like that. Now we're doing like ML ops and, even DevOps, right? Like, I guess there's no certification for like the whole process, the people process technology side of things. And one of our trainer, Michael Forrester, he has a few courses that are around just how people work with around the people aspects of DevOps, right? Which is something that's not covered in any particular certification.
And then do you now offer like Code Cloud certifications or Code Cloud badges? Like if someone passes one of these courses, a Code Cloud course? Do they get
if someone
something?
passes a course, they do get like a course completion certificate, which is, I guess, pretty standard. We don't have a Code Cloud certification as of yet, but that's something we had been planning, but we want to see what is probably like the next kind of the big thing that we could create a certification on, something that's unique, something that's hands-on, something that's different from the existing certifications out there. One that, like, if you have, you should, it should really have value. I guess.
Yeah. How do you make sure it has value? How do you do that? Yeah.
I don't know. Make it very super hard, like impossible to
You need a jacket. A jacket. That's what makes it.
Too,
could you imagine, like your 5 years ago self making their very first course ever? Could you have thought in 100 years this is where you'd be now?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like every year. My first year, I was like, as I said, I just wanted to, create a course and just do my own thing. I never imagined I would hire like at least 2 to 3 people. But the next year we were like 5 people, and then I never imagined I would get to being a company of like 20 people. And then we were 20. I'm like, okay, that's it. This is it. We're going to be a 20 people team. And then the next year we were like 40. So now I'm like, this is it. Like, we cannot be more than this. But yeah, hopefully it continues to grow.
Do you have any thoughts or expectations for where you want it to go, or are you just continuing to see what happens?
Well, lately we've started to come up with some goals and some kind of destination. So not really like the earlier days. So so we do have, because we're a larger team, I guess. We want to make sure like people know what their future, where we are going, and I guess kind of to row in the same direction. So we do have a few years. I guess we're now starting to look into like a few years ahead. We have some goals set. I mean, we definitely want to continue to grow as we have been in the past. Build new experiences. I mean, ultimately, to me, the most exciting thing is to create kind of new learning experiences that like people really love. Like one of the things that we did recently was like release an AI bot or a chat bot next to our labs, where like you do something and you fail at it and it's not working. You could just ask the AI chatbot. It would tell you, it would gather all the information and tell you exactly what you did wrong. And people seem to like really like that. So to me, that's what brings like the most, that's what motivates me the most. So I feel like I'm a builder, and I like creating things that people want to use or love to use. And to me, that's the goal, right? I want to continue to do this as long as possible.
I have a last question from me, and that is, what's the most common mistake you see new learners make?
I think the most common mistake new learners make would be like skipping through the foundational knowledge. Sometimes like just going directly to learn Kubernetes without having some of the prerequisite knowledge, which you mentioned earlier on, because then you're like in this loop of things failing and not knowing why it's failing, and then going back to learn just that part, and then continuing and then failing again, and then going back and learning just that part. I guess having a thorough learning of the foundations will definitely help, and that's why we've been having like a lot of focus on foundational topics, very, very recently, with like a lot of hands-on activities.
That's awesome.
Well, so the last question, and then we can let you go. Or as Pee Wee Herman says, we can let you, let me, let you, let us go, or something like that. But so as established, you've done a tremendous amount of video. A tremendous amount of tremendous video across things. And so I wonder, I mean, if you do this, but when you're just doing your casual video watching here and there, like having been through that experience and in the production side, do you get the so-called plumber's problem, where like it kind of ruins the experience? Like, do you have Do you have other things that you're thinking about as you're watching it, like noticing like, oh, look, they left that on, or like, oh, that thumbnail is really nice? Or do you still have the ability to just like go into the flow of video watching?
So, sorry, when you say video watching, like just
you're
me
just watching, like, yeah, you're just like, I got a few moments now. I'm going to watch a cute cat, or like someone falling over, like tripping on something, like just whatever, online videos as a medium, or maybe you just read books in your spare time.
Yeah, no. So I do watch a lot of videos. I think it's very important for me to like stay ahead of like what's happening. So I watch a lot of videos. I watch a lot of other courses, and I try to figure out like what is the next big trend that's going on. And so as you said, like the thumbnails and stuff like that, I'm always like finding what's the new trend and sharing with my team and asking them to learn from those. And just learning platforms too, right? Like not just videos. I'm looking at other like newer learning platforms and seeing what are people trying to come up with. And books, like as you can see from time to time, to me it's everything I do like needs a purpose, right? Like I just don't randomly just read a book because I have like half an hour, right? Like I have a problem and I want to solve that, and then that's why I would read a book. So some of the I guess management books are there because I had some some learnings in the past couple of years where as we scaled up, wanted to figure things out. So I bought those books and read them. But as soon as the problem goes away, I kind of stop and then I move on to other things. So to me, one of the ways that I put myself in a little bit of a pressure to do something is to like, sign up to something. Like, for example, commit to something.
Social accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have this Kubernetes, I have the CKA exam booked for tomorrow around the same time. And I did that a couple of months back because I know that the exam just got updated yesterday. And I wanted to make sure I kind of take that and understand what's new in the exam and bring that to the course. So just to kind of put myself under that pressure, I would book the exam and leave it so that I have no other choice other than to prepare for it and learn. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Do you find yourself like here's something that happens to me every now and then, I by no means do as much video as you two, but like, maybe I'll be watching some video that I thought was interesting, and then it's over and I'll realize like I just watched nothing. And somehow I was drawn in by like, one of those thumbnails of a close up on someone's face who looks either very disappointed or like super shocked and jazzed about something. And then they do that thing where they're like telling you like, oh, something crazy happened for like 5 minutes. And then the crazy thing that happened is like, they boiled some water or something. but do you get immune to the power of that kind of like
clickbait?
Sure, clickbaity stuff, or just like the pleasurable joy of mindless videos, right? Or do you do it so much that you're just sort of, you can see it a mile coming, and you're just like, that person looks like they smelled a fart on that thumbnail, and I'm like,
as I was saying, I would try and get as much possible in the shortest time.
Right. So it's sort of not your scene to just watch, people getting kicked accidentally.
Not really.
Right. So you're immune by nature of not showing up, which is always a good method.
I have to say, I really relate to your limiting the amount of information you consume. I work in the same way. And I know so many people in tech and so many people we've interviewed on this podcast and Coté are all like, I read 500 blogs a day and I watch all this video all the time and I summarize it in my daily newsletter. And I'm just like, that is not how I roll at all. I watch one thing and I understand it deeply. And then 3 days later, I'll watch something else. And that's okay. I think it takes all kinds. But will you restate the story of what your wife has to do with what you're watching 15 minutes worth?
Yeah. So, I mean, no, so she sends me these forwards, reels on Instagram of like
Got
the
it.
relatable ones. And she's like, watch this, this is what you did to me, like, a few days back, like that. So I follow that, and then now I'm on Instagram and I'm like scrolling. So I kind of found this hack where like you can just set a limit across these apps. So after that, it just hits the limit, and you can't open it for the rest of the day, which is amazing.
That's great. My hack is to use newsfeed eradicators. Like there are different plugins you can get for your browser or whatever. So when I log on to LinkedIn, I can't see the newsfeed of LinkedIn. I can see anyone's profile. I can click into them or whatever. Okay, yeah.
I have that too. Yeah, that's amazing. Like otherwise, you go on LinkedIn, you just to message somebody, and then you're there for like an hour.
Exactly.
I have that exact thing on my browser too.
I love that. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up. Coté's still here in the room with us, but unable to turn on his audio without us hearing his dog loop. So he'll wave goodbye. If you really miss his goodbye, you can tune into the video and see him waving. But thank you so much, Mumshad Mannambeth, for coming on. I appreciate you so much. It's really special for me. And those of y'all watching, if you want to learn more about Code Cloud, get links to everything we talked about, you could do that at softwaredefinedinterviews.com and get /96, and you will find the episode notes for this. And this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, likewise. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Whitney. Really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation for the past hour or so. So really enjoyed it, and let's do it again sometime. So thank you.
Absolutely. Goodbye.